Thank you so much for being here today. I would first like to thank everyone who would be able to come out to Greenfield today and see my family's farm. I recognize so many faces, members of the community that I went to high school with, people that I grew up with and watched me be raised into the woman that I am today. There are, of course, some notable faces here today. Christy Vilsack, who I first met when she was First Lady of Iowa back in 2000. We met at a women's leadership conference in Des Moines. I was first inspired to run for the state senate because of Christy's simple answer when I posed the question, how do we get more women to be involved in political office? Her answer, they just have to run for one. Tom Harkin. What can I say? Thank you for the last almost 40 years of representing Iowa and Washington, D.C. Your dedication to all of your constituents is immeasurable. As some of you may know, Tom and I first met as I worked on his 1992 presidential campaign while I was an undergrad at Iowa State. Tom always liked to tell his campaign staff and volunteers about why he became a Democrat. For those of you who haven't already heard this story dozens of times, it's about his father, a hardworking man whose education stopped after the 6th grade. His father found work and made a living thanks to Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, and he worked for the WPA. Like many other farms in Iowa, before Roosevelt's New Deal, my family farm didn't have electricity. Until Iowans were put to work for the Rural Electrification Administration and made power accessible to every Iowa farm. The Democratic Party has always been good to Iowa, and we need to keep sending people with Iowa's best interests in mind to Washington. That is why I am electrified to be here today, standing in front of you, announcing my candidacy for the United States Senate. The farm where we are today is one that has been in my family for over a century, passed down from father to son over generations. My grandfather inherited this farm shortly after he and my grandmother were married. He took pride in the fact that he was able to do something he enjoyed and was still able to provide for my grandmother and their new family. They had 3 kids, 2 daughters, and their youngest was my father, a boy that they hoped would someday take over the family farm. One night, shortly after my father was born, my grandfather was sleeping, only to be abruptly woken up. The barn, where all the sheep were kept, had caught on fire. My grandpa raced outside to see what he could do. He immediately started carrying all the sheep outside of the barn, out of harm's way, with the power of many men. My grandmother, in the meantime, had gotten a hold of all of the neighbors who rushed over with other members of the community to help put out the fire. At this time, there was no fire department in Greenfield, so the only reason why the fire was put out that night was because of all the friends and neighbors who came in the middle of the night to help. Unfortunately, not all of the sheep were saved in that barn, and in the process of trying to get them out, my grandfather broke his back. His lifelong dream was shattered in one brief moment. Unable to continue farming, my grandparents were fearful they were going to lose the land their ancestors had worked so hard for. Luckily for us, the people of Greenfield and all throughout Iowa are kind, compassionate, and always willing to help out someone in need. They all took turns working the land free of charge for the few years while my grandfather went to college to earn his college degree. After a while, both my grandparents were able to get college degrees and both ended up becoming educators. Along with a sense of community so true to the spirit of all Iowans, This story exemplifies so many things that I am passionate about. Jobs in the economy, agriculture, farming, and energy, and of course, opportunities in education. We need to send a senator to Washington who has the ability to grow the Iowa economy, someone who understands the needs of small businesses, someone who has a proven job record of job creation, someone who understands the needs of every class, not just the wealthy, someone who is determined to provide every single worker in the state of Iowa a wage they can actually live off of. When my wonderful husband, Tim, lost his job during the economic collapse, we worried about what the future had in store for us, like many other Iowans. After some soul searching, Tim was able to get back on his feet and actually was able to start his own business. After some very long days and very long nights for the both of us, he was finally able to drum up enough business to hire employees. Now we are proud to say that his business, Talented Engineering, is thriving with over 50 other Iowa employees. Unfortunately, many other Iowans continue to be either under or unemployed. We are currently living in a time where those who have jobs worry about Social Security and whether or not it will still be in place when they retire. We must work together across the aisle in ways to find ways to ensure that Social Security benefits will be there for generations of future Iowans. I understand what it takes to grow the economy. Iowa has a strong background in agriculture and energy, and I plan to continue growing and to get the nation to enact more standards to increase the usage of renewable energy sources. If you drove on I-35 coming into Greenfield today, I'm sure you noticed all the wind turbines. We are making great progress when it comes to alternative energy sources, but friends, it's not enough. We're Iowans. We can do better. That's why I co-wrote a bill with Senator Joel Bolcom from Iowa City to encourage the development of solar energy in Iowa. I worked with Tim Dwight, president of the Iowa Solar and Small Wind Energy Trade Association, who notes that the price of solar energy is dropping on a monthly basis. And of course, we need to continue to work with Iowa farmers to continue making sure that corn for ethanol is viable and cost beneficial for them. With the right leader in Washington, Iowa will only continue to grow. Iowa has always worked to grow in education and is firmly rooted in trying to make advancements. However, thanks to legislation like No Child Left Behind, the federal government has made Iowa shift to unattainable standards that no longer promote student learning. The federal report on schools in Iowa came out just on Tuesday, and according to it, more than half of Iowa public schools are not meeting these standards. I've done what I can both in the classroom and on the Iowa Senate floor. This last session, I co-sponsored a bill that was signed by the governor that changes practices in our schools to promote the use of technology in order to provide better, different, and more challenging educational opportunities. This same bill also sets up a system in schools to empower more teachers by putting some in leadership roles in which they can help facilitate other teachers in the classroom. I recently spoke with Josh Young, a teacher at Cedar Rapids, Washington High School, who has recently accepted one of these leadership positions, and he mentioned in just the short amount of time that this has been enacted in his school, he has already seen such a positive change and more engagement from all the teachers in his building. Yet we also know that learning doesn't stop after high school. We must find ways to get more students into both four-year programs at universities and technical and vocational schools. I spoke with a high school senior, Carly Campbell from Adair, about how worried she was she wouldn't be able to pursue her dream
of becoming a cancer researcher to honor her mother, who has recently passed. It's because all of the money her family has saved up that was supposed to go to her college tuition was spent on medical bills. No single person should ever have to put off a dream based on their lack of funding for education. We must continue to grow educational opportunities in Iowa. Now, I refuse to be a puppet for special interest groups and corporations with big pocketbooks. Instead, I will be your voice in DC. I will be someone who will work to actually enact change on your behalf. So many people have already come to me, energized by my past work and encouraged as to what I could do for Iowa while in Washington. As a history teacher, I always tell my students that famous line as to why you need to learn history, so you don't repeat it. Today, I want to enact change, to grow Iowa. And on November 4th, you and I can make history together and elect Iowa's first female United States Senator. God bless you, God bless Iowa, and God bless the United States of America.